All right. Well, welcome to another Velocity Lease Summit virtual event. Well, the world's changing a little bit. We're actually here live with all of our panelists. So typically we've been in different rooms, different areas, but today we're all together. And today's title of the event is going to be Entrepreneurial Opportunities Emerging During and Post-Pandemic. We're going to listen to some thought leaders here in our community as they discuss their observation regarding potential opportunities for entrepreneurs as we move forward into 2021 and beyond. So our three distinguished thought leaders here are, I don't know, laughing in the background here.
So we're here.
Oh, yeah. So they are distinguished members of the community here in Lease Summit, run very successful businesses, and they're also some of the founding members of Velocity. So we'll get into why they joined Velocity, and also, but at the end of the day, what's happening in today's world that's going to change? What have they seen in the past, and how is that going to affect the future? So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into, and we're going to ask Chip Moxley to identify himself and tell us a little bit about himself and his business.
Great. Well, thank you, DJ. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be with the group today. My name is Chip Moxley. I'm the owner of Tingle Flooring here in Lease Summit. The most frequent question I get asked is, well, until we put the name flooring back in our trade name, but they go, what do you do? And they know we don't have retail stores, or they have never seen a retail store with Tingle's name on it. So long story short is we're a wholesale distributor in a very classic sense, which in today's marketplace means we kind of are the importer, or we're either importing flooring products, or we buy them domestically. And sometimes, even though we import, we're buying them from our U.S. domestic partners. So one of our major flooring brands for years, for the Tingle, has been a 75-year business, has been the Armstrong Flooring business. They're located in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they've been around from the earliest days of linoleum. So they still sell linoleum, and linoleum is, believe it or not, still a popular product in the commercial world because it's very natural. Anyway, that aside, in today's floor place, as a distributor, our principal products today have become the resilient products. What many people are now putting in their homes and businesses are the vinyl planks, and they come nowadays. They all started off about 4 inches by 36 inches, and today they go from 4 and 36 inches to 5 foot long, and they might be dark wood, light wood. They might look like, and they might be squares, they might be rectangles. But anyway, they're all kind of the same category. The other popular category today is wood flooring. So wood flooring is sourced from around the world. And so our job is to bring it in, gather it up. We distribute from 3 major warehouses: St. Louis, Kansas City, or Lease Summit, and Denver. Lease Summit's our headquarters. And we sell to about 2,500 to 3,000 retailers.
So real quick, but basically you're seeing stuff from around the world and dealing with stuff here in the U.S.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we'll get back to that, but after we get through the introductions. So our next panelist, Rick Fire.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you, DJ. Well, I don't know how I can top that. That's very interesting. My history, or I guess my vocational career, started years and years ago, actually almost 40 years ago. Out of college, a graduate of Missouri State, and had the opportunity to.
You were young back then. You graduated when we were 12 or something?
I can't even remember being a young DJ, but I'm sure I was at some point. Anyway, I started with Boatman's Bank, which was a big organization back in the day. And probably the pinnacle of my career was having the opportunity to come back to Kansas City and work in the Eastern Jackson County market. And in 2005, received a phone call and an invitation to start a new bank in Eastern Jackson County. It was a partner out of state. And so almost single-handedly, we raised $8.3 million in capital.
Back then, that was a lot of money.
Well, that was
Yeah.
in 2005, and then today, actually, 8 million is still
a lot of money. Yeah. Well, there was a lot.
DJ.
We call that Moxley money.
Yeah, right.
But we were able to determine where the bank would be located. We chartered it in Lee Summit. I was able to invite community leaders, different leaders, to be in our board of directors, hire the staff. And so for 15 years, Summit Bank of Kansas City had a really, really great run. And our fingerprints were over a whole lot of projects in town. And it was my privilege to serve as the CEO and president for that time. And then about 2 years ago, we were approached by Citizens Bank and Trust out of Chillicothe, who thought it would be worth a discussion to merge into them and bring our Eastern Jackson County expertise into a footprint that had 19 or 20 branches throughout Northwest Missouri. And I think the most south location for Citizens at that time was Zona Rosa, but Maryville and St. Joe and Chillicothe and a lot of little birds along the way. So I am now one of the executive vice presidents for Citizens Bank and Trust, in charge of small business, all of our community bank platforms, and the SBA, which, by the way, SBA has been a powerhouse throughout this COVID with the payroll protection program. So that's a little bit of my history, and it's been a good run so far.
So what I'm hearing is you're seeing a lot of the financial good and bad, and where it's going and where it's been. So we'll come back to that here in a little bit. But our last panelist, and Mr. Chuck Cooper, and we're actually in his facility out here in Lee Summit. So Chuck, thank you for having us, hosting us here.
My pleasure.
And tell us a little bit about you.
All right. Well, at the moment and present, I'm managing partner for Strongbox Wealth. We are here at the world headquarters of our one location. We're an independent financial planning, wealth management firm, and primarily serve high net worth clients, professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners. So really what that essentially translates to mean is on a day-to-day basis, we manage risk and the risk associated with it with people and their money, helping them to reach their lifetime aspirations, goals, a lot on income planning, tax sequencing. We talked a lot and helped in strategy and planning with business owners and their exit strategies. So my history is starting in the investment business back when we were called stockbrokers in 1993, and then moved out to Eastern Jackson County in around 1999, and then moved the family to Lee Summit in 2000. So really, Velocity served as a major source of inspiration for me and for my partner John Garlow to exit from a national bank and start our own firm. And we were in that kind of corporate banking model for a good long while, and it served us very, very well and our clients well in addition. But we really felt the pull as entrepreneurs at heart to start our business. It's been remarkably rewarding. It's all and more that we had hoped for our clients. And again, a lot of these events that we've had throughout the years, and speakers and panelists along the way served as inspiration and what we've done here. So happy to share our perspective on opportunities looking forward from this pandemic.
And so before we dive into some of what you see going forward and some of the changes and maybe what the new normal is, but you guys are all helped start the Velocity Group, around entrepreneurs and startups here in Lee Summit and Eastern Jackson County. So could somebody, one of you guys, talk about a little bit about how it started, and then why did you get involved? And then we'll ask everybody about why they got involved. So, Rick, you want to talk a little bit about how Velocity started? I think you were the very first chair
That's right.
of
That's right.
so let's pick on you a little bit.
Honors. Get the honors.
Yeah.
Well, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it was 5, I don't recall now, but Mayor Randy Rhodes decided, and it was a great decision, that there was a need to support entrepreneurs in our community. And so he appointed a task force and named a group of community citizens to, I think we met for probably a year, once a month, discussing the different processes that should be followed, where we might establish what services the group might ultimately provide. And when that good body of work concluded, the city council said, okay, we're ready to help fund it, and we would like you to set up a board of directors. And so with the help of city legal department.
So the roles were reversed a little bit, where you were asking, initially you were asking people to be on. Now you're getting asked to be on the board.
We did. And I think we were 3 charter board members, and they said, okay, who wants to chair? Take one step back.
This is it.
I didn't
We all
see him
went to the
moving
door.
back, so
Yeah.
there I was.
You're drinking, getting a cup of coffee at the time, and all of a sudden your name. That's sometimes I think how those boards, how you get in charge of stuff.
By not being there.
Yeah, by not being there,
Rick
you
was
get
there.
volunteered for that position, right? But you've done a wonderful job. Thank
Well,
you
it
for
took us
doing
about
that.
a year and a half to reach critical mass, DJ, because I thought, and we thought our original marching orders was to identify a brick and mortar location that would be known throughout the region as a place where entrepreneurs would meet. And as it turns out, I feel like part of my year was wasted because our vision wasn't right. And then Chuck followed me, and our vision was, let's work on a body of work and services to provide. Don't worry about the location. That will take care of itself.
So there was a pivot. Everybody likes you. That's the word.
Definitely a pivot.
That's
There was a
right.
pivot.
About it.
So in essence, what you're saying is this was a startup, and you had to. You knew there was a need, but how did we service it? How did you guys service that need?
Imagine the irony of an entrepreneur group being a startup.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's
in
right.
turn, because, it is ironic.
And we stumbled. We stumbled along
Several
the way
times,
until we
yes, sir.
caught stride, and so many passionate board members and original board members are to thank for that, and leadership under Rick and getting us pointed in the right direction. But to his point, we originally thought it was this idea of supporting entrepreneurs was more facilities based. We need a place for people to go. And then we kind of realized once and in large part, thanks here to you, DJ, with a lot of your connections, and we started having these events, and there was this synergy that we found in the room, and that room was wherever we ended up being.
Right.
And how would that have changed with the pandemic if we wouldn't have had a place? Then it would have just sat empty for so long.
Right.
Another
So-
one would have.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
so that's what's been nice about some of these, especially virtual. We adapted and overcome with COVID. So let me ask real quick. I mean, why did you get involved? Let's start with Chuck. Why did you get involved? You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but tell me what got you really going, other than being volunteered for the board.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the.
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, I was honored to be considered at the time, and prior to that time, I worked a lot with the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation and kind of to promote charitable giving, and so I have a passion for that. And then I just really found a raw energy with the constituents of this group. I mean, it's exciting to me, and for so many of our clients in the financial services business to be a part of their walk, from inception of their business to helping them scale, to helping to when they actually have discretionary assets that they can use, for their discretionary goals. I mean, a lot of it kind of was spawned from what we do as planners, and what is personally fulfilling to be a part of. And so I thought, well, gosh, no better way than to do it in a community sense with Lee Summit's entrepreneurs, and see if I can play a part to help them out.
Rick, what about you? What got you involved with Velocity, other than being volunteered for the position?
Well, most of my career has been focused on small businesses and helping small companies. And and that's really been the focus. And the common thread is that when somebody will come to me with a dream, or come to one of the members of our team and say, I'd like to start a business. I have this vision and I want a loan. Well, okay, what's your strategic plan look like?
And real quick, let me jump in. Yeah, real quick. I think most of the people that have an idea, they think they need to go to the bank, and you were seeing that in firsthand. And you're like, okay, well, you got an idea, not a company that we can loan money to. So what? And there was nobody to maybe turn to. I mean, what I've seen is that kind of.
So when I say common thread, the common thread seemed to be the entrepreneur was historically the big vision person, the big idea, but not the accountant, not the legal part of it, not the strategic part of it, not somebody who could build a firm foundation where the company would actually have a chance to grow. And so we found ourselves mentoring these wannabe entrepreneurs, and we would say, you need a good support system. You need legal counsel to set up the right entity. You need a good accountant to decide what kind of financial reporting you need, so you know if you're even making money. And you need to have a good insurance broker and a good investment counselor. Well, all of a sudden, that person had a team. Now, it wasn't big enough to have a board of directors, but by gosh, he had 4 professionals who supported him or her. And I love that piece of it. And so we carried that thought into what we do, bringing that level of support.
Excellent. And I want to come back to that, but let's get Chip's. Why'd you get involved, Chip?
Really, it came from, and I did somewhat had the opportunity, having been a CPA out of college, I had an opportunity to actually join a business my dad had been affiliated with, and for many years, and come in at that level. But my interest came with Velocity from the fact that our customer base that we service are almost entirely people that start their own businesses. So they can be some of your most recognizable names in the flooring world, like Weber Carpet is just a great example. All over town, one of the biggest both retail and builder subcontractors in the city when it comes to flooring. Mark started his business after being a truck driver for a number of years, and he said, "You know what? I think I'd like to get into the business and sell this stuff." Well, he's been at it now for about 30 years. And
I never knew that. That is a great story right there.
And these guys, and that is our customer base.
Okay.
So, the 2,500 current customers, I will tell you that 70% of those people started their own business. Some are second generation, some could even be third generation. But very typically, the first generation, they started from some aspect. They either got involved on the installation side of the business, or they sold flooring for somebody else under some other, or just for whatever reason, they ended up in that trade. And we're very appreciative when they come and they already have the banker and they already have the accountant and they already have these relationships that Rick just described. And we love it when they got the bank, because otherwise we end up being the bank. So
and I didn't hear Tingle Flooring and Bank. I just heard Tingle Flooring.
But the majority of those customers, and actually when you are in a trade type business, trade credit, other than bank financing, is your other largest form of financing. So it's not doesn't show up as much on the service side, but if you get into I want to sell something, or I want to do something like that. Trade credit is a large part of how you do business. But
what I'm hearing from you guys is you already had the expertise. It was just not formalized into a bigger group where you could bring the assets of the community together. It was just you.
Exactly our goal.
And then there was the give back. You're already doing the give back. Now you're just more in an organized structure where people can find you. Is that probably the best way to, is what I'm hearing?
Find us, but find each other. Find this network that exists.
Because you guys are all growing your own business as well. I mean, it's not stagnant. I mean, you're burgeoning, you're growing. Yes. Everybody's growing. Or the old saying is if you're not moving ahead, you're falling behind. And so
couldn't be more true.
And so it sounded, I think probably, and I've heard this, is sometimes when you mentor people, the mentor gets more out of it than the mentee.
Mhm.
And it's always, and the mentee always the same, they're getting tons out of it. But so I want to thank you. Weber Carpet, they probably thanks you, and all the people you've touched over the years. So thank you for putting this group together. We've kind of now talked a little bit about velocity and everything, and we've not really touched on what the point of this event is. And hopefully we've got a lot of people out there, and we will tell you that you can now start throwing up some questions. You got some background. Feel free to chat through Facebook, and we'll ask those questions later on. So make sure you can address those questions to any particular person in attendance here. So real quick, we've seen a lot of businesses that have struggled. Some failed. I mean, I've got, you go out to dinner now, and if you want to go out to dinner, but you're not sure if they're open or what time they close anymore because the website's not exactly right. So things have changed. So what do you see that has changed, probably going to stick? Because what's the new normal? And where's the opportunities to grow from your perspectives, from the flooring and touching both commercial and residential building? Right now there's I'm looking at something about housing, and it's seriously undersupplied. You're seeing apartments go up everywhere, single family residents going up everywhere. The banking's involved. You've got people that are investing. Let's kind of talk about where are the opportunities based around more. They always talk about entrepreneurs being risk takers, but I don't think, if you're not an entrepreneur, it's a calculated risk, not necessarily I'm just throwing caution to the wind. So where are those, from your perspective, where do we find those calculated risks to move forward and grow our businesses or start another company or be an entrepreneur in something? So Rick, is there something some feedback where you think industry sectors that you think are just going to continue growing, or something that's the new normal out there?
Well, we being the financial sector, has learned what we can do when the impossible happens, or a disaster that we think, short of a really bad movie plot. I mean, who would have believed that this last year would have happened? And so, like most companies, we closed our doors for 30 days and tried to regroup. And I feel really sorry for the retail companies, the high touch and field service industries, because those companies have no choice but to open their doors. If they don't, they'll never make a dime. Banks are a little different. We have still not opened our lobby for the public because we can conduct so much business online. Almost everything we can do that way, plus the drive-through allows us to conduct in-person business. We'll do by appointment. But we've also discovered that working from home is real. And almost all of the members of our 200-person team is set up, other than tellers, with workstations in their home. And so if they choose to work from home one day and come in the next day, they're welcome to do it. It's not like one of the people maybe who rolls up to me will call and say, I'm gonna work from home today. And then in the old days, I would say, oh, yeah, right. Well, now I know they actually certainly are. They're dedicated professionals.
Have you found that people sometimes maybe even more productive than if they had come into the office?
They can be, DJ, but what the trade-off that is killing us or killing me is we've lost the culture, the closeness, the intimacy of people talking to people. It's the old water cooler thing.
I think that's why we're doing this today, in person.
Well,
because we've missed that personal interaction. I mean, you can only get so much on a video screen, right?
And this actually happened yesterday when we met to kind of discuss how we're going to do it by Zoom. And one of us, me, said, what if we just try to do this? And Chip said, I've had my COVID shot. I said, I've had my shot.
I've had my shots. And I think, so Chuck's the only one living on the edge here. So he'll go he'll go get his here soon.
I'm
So
around
DJ,
that inoculated group.
Yes.
We've lost that culture, and that's what we miss the most. We've got to, you know,
So how do you grow that culture in the new norm?
well, you
Whether-
decide working from home is not going to be the business model. It's going to be a part of the business model.
Kind of like a snow day for kids. Every once in a while. Maybe, okay.
That's valid.
So, and you got a warehouse, I know, Chip, you've got a warehouse, you can't,
Yeah.
the flooring doesn't move by itself.
No, sir. If you have a business that requires the movement of product, repair, anything of that nature,
Mhm.
you really have had to just get creative. And, you know, for instance, here's a creative. When somebody comes to one of our facilities that's actually picking up their own product, we would do things like they would call ahead. Our fellows would then go out and load their car or their truck, and we would ask that they stay in their car. And that way you avoid some of that interaction. Now, you'd go up there this afternoon and observe, you go, well, it looks like it's a little bit more lax, or it's become a little bit more lax. And they probably have, as this thing's worn on, but they're wearing their mask, and we make a big deal about that, and the hand washing, sanitation, and all that kind of
I
thing.
think that's why we're not wearing our mask, is because we have been inoculated and we're having a little distance
Right,
between us,
and
but
you know, whatever one of us have it, one in their pocket, you know,
Yeah.
so.
we all came in with our
We
masks.
all
So,
keep with our masks on.
so yes. So Chuck, how has it affected yours? I mean, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have a big high touch,
Right.
necessarily, except maybe when you bring a new client
Yeah.
in. How has that affected bringing new clients in and having that discussion?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I've always said that we work in a very intimate business. And what I mean by that is, you know, we typically with our clients are touching all parts of their life and their livelihood, and really their current plans, their future plans, their ability, their capacity to arrive and deliver. And oftentimes, you know, that is a relationship that involves obviously a lot of high touch and a confidential sense, right? So, yeah. So the typical way that things changed for us was, you know, like this, for Zoom and such, and actually for us, we have a good chunk of our clients out of town, so it served as an accelerant to our service model, actually. You know, because I know it was available. Thankfully, it was fourth quarter of 19 when we kind of became all technologically enabled and such. But we've been talking with our out of town clients and doing reviews and screen shares and such in a much more in-depth way than we were prior to that, where we would get on a plane and go out to Arizona or Colorado or Texas or Florida, you know, wherever it may be, to see clients. So in that sense, it served as an accelerant to better service. And in our case, you know, we keep a lot of, in our particular setup here, we have good space between our offices. So we just closed the front door, you know, didn't have any face-to-face meetings for several months. And that was okay. But to your point about how it's evolved business, really it's become such that, you know, again, in our particular service, and we're fortunate in that regard, the pandemic has served as a period of time where people need to get closer to their finances. They really need to know they have a plan.
Because they have plenty of time at home to think about all this.
Correct. And there may be, you know, some job interruptions, there may be some cash flow interruptions. And so to that end, we were finding ourselves, and, you know, and as we all say, you know, life's about moments, and a lot in between is kind of, you know, interim and passing time, right? But in those moments when you're called upon to serve a client that has a particular need, there's a crossroads, and there are decisions that need to be made. Then for us, we're fortunate to be present and able, whether it's via, you know, this or, you know, conventional means. So, you know, as far as that goes, I think that I mean, that's how it's changed our personal business.
Okay. All right. Well, so you guys have been around for a while. I'm not going to say you're old or anything like that. But 2008, how is 2008? How is 2020 and 2021 different than maybe 2008? Or is there some similarities between what happened in 2008 and then last year and as we continue into 2021? So, Chuck, you want to take that?
Yeah. Well, it sure rhymes a lot as far as, the financial markets and the government and the Fed response in terms of how do we react to all of a sudden this major event? And that, I kind of liken it to, pre-COVID, the economic balance. They kind of envision it as a teeter-totter, if you will, just kind of nicely in equilibrium and balance, and this big anvil from the sky falls down with a COVID on it, and it throws everything up in, right?
Great analogy. I love that. I haven't heard that, but yeah.
I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So and beyond the reaction to that and kind of the dismay and the shock and such, we knew that this was a long road to recover ahead of us. So it was an isolated shock that we knew was going to take, notwithstanding the horrible health situation, of course, the deaths and everyone being sick and all that means. But from a financial perspective, that it would take a long time to recover. So to your question, yes, the Federal Reserve in its wisdom has been very, very active in creating a lot of liquidity. And for me, as a part of what our topic is today, in a sense, that provides enormous incentive for the owner-minded individual, for companies, for entrepreneurs, for aspiring entrepreneurs. And here's why. Think about it. If the Fed, in its response to bring equilibrium back to the teeter-totter, right, they can't policy-wise do enough fast enough. They can't do whatever with taxes. They can't do whatever with spending. Congress probably would move too slow anyway. So the monetary authority says, we're just going to print a ton of money and let it chase out and let it go in the system and chase itself. And so what's happening is that is a direct incentive to ownership assets. So whether that's real estate, which I know Chip has some thoughts on to talk about, whether that's capital assets like we work with in stocks and such. But most important, the governmental response, the Fed's response, was to incent the business owner. And that's crucially important to understand, because if a business owner knows that he or she cannot sell his or her product or service next year for more than today, you're going to sit on your hands. You're not going to hire. You're not going to invest in your plant. You're not going to invest in your technology. This trajectory of labor force improvement gains that we've seen over the last few months, that would not be seen. So the policy response is to enable risk, okay, to enable ownership risk. And that's where we are. And that's why I think it's such a fascinating time for entrepreneurs, because think about this. I mean, when we changed from our corporate world to our entrepreneurial world, we chose change, and there was a lot of deliberation that went into that, a lot of due diligence that went into that, and it was excruciatingly painful. But you
chose that versus some people might not have gotten the choice, and now needing to just pay the bills.
Exactly
And
the point.
How do we pay the bills?
So change can be forced upon us too, as we've seen. So now that change has been forced upon us in all of our walks, no matter what. Now it provides an opportunity to grow, to get on our front foot. I mean, we're going to be past this. I was reading some stats the other day. We have over 100 million who have received their first shot, 70 million of their second. You can add up all 25 countries on this planet and everyone who has been inoculated, and it equals the United States of America. All right, so I know there's a lot of political aspects of this that it goes both ways, but the point is that we are rapidly moving forward
In a good direction.
in a good
direction versus
right.
not too long ago, still felt like we were going in the wrong direction. So
You're right.
from a monetary and a health, we're changing. So you're seeing that, and so we're also hearing to talk about a big infrastructure.
Yes, absolutely.
And we won't get into the politics of government, but at the end of the day, we're putting money out there. And where can entrepreneurs really go out there, and where are some opportunities maybe you're seeing out there that's in the market because of this influx around infrastructure, just around monetary? Is there something maybe you're seeing out there where an individual, an entrepreneur can take advantage of that? Rick, is there anything in particular you're seeing, or just talk about where the banking industry is going from this influx of cash, and then how does that affect maybe infrastructure from a standpoint, even that going? I mean, somebody's got to put the money, somebody's got to build the infrastructure, they got to put the money somewhere before they spend it. So talk about that.
With full respect to Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, I don't think that the financial industry or the financial network could have reacted more quickly or more appropriately than it did, for a number of reasons. The Treasury and the SBA jumped on the efforts to keep people employed through the payroll protection program. And not one time, two times. So there's PPP1 and PPP2.
A lot of P's in there.
Our institution, for example, focused on serving our customers throughout our footprint, which was all throughout Northwest Missouri. And that all was centralized in our Lee Summit office under my team's work. And through recently, we've made almost 500 loans to companies that kept so many people employed, totaling over $42 million. Now, that's money it's like money that fell from heaven for people that they were so grateful to get. And so that's one aspect with the SBA. SBA borrowers who had existing SBA loans discovered that for 6 months in 2020, the SBA made the payments for 6 months for those borrowers. It was incredibly generous.
And has the SBA been good about giving new SBA loans to startup companies?
We are still,
okay, so that hasn't
making SBA loans.
Okay, great.
And then for 2 months during 2021, those same SBA payments are being made by SBA. Second phase of that is our regulators have been very gracious in giving us latitude and helping our borrowers who are really hurting with modifications and extensions, just to make sure that the businesses don't fail. And a bank will be as patient as its regulator will allow it to be.
Understand? Yeah.
And
yes.
We have all had very generous mulligans to help people who are really, really hurting. And it's like you said, what's the difference between 2008 and now? From my perspective, 2008 was more an organic problem. It's an economic downturn that we kind of saw coming. We couldn't keep it from happening. But the pandemic happened to us. And that just felt personal. It felt like something that we never thought would happen that did. And if we get a chance to talk about it, there are some preparations that business owners can learn to make so that when the impossible happens again,
because they talk about that, hey, this isn't going to be the first time we run through another pandemic because of how mobile we are across. We're all touching businesses across the world, and who would always think that at Lee Summit, or you have to be in New York or LA to touch people around the world. People in Lee Summit touch people around the world, and so viruses move faster. So this isn't going to be the last time we maybe have to deal with this. Hopefully it is, but we just hope. But
you got to taught us a lesson. Taught us a lesson.
Taught us a lesson. So Chip, you want to?
Well, what you would have thought as a business owner that's been in business, you had one notion, and if a disaster would occur, you typically would think of insurance. Well, most of us realized by day number 3, when you'd already either shut your business down, or either momentarily or perhaps longer than that, depending on what your industry is, that most insurances that were in existence there's no coverage.
It's an act of God. Okay.
It's
I
an
think
act
it
of
falls under an act of God or something in there.
Yeah.
In your insurance policy, which,
Exclude.
yeah, exclusion, it's an exclusion
So
there.
what do? You deal.
Right,
We all
right.
know.
Adapt and overcome. I always like
And
to.
there's no question that this pandemic has had an unfair effect on some business categories. If you're in entertainment, if you're in hospitality, if you're in travel and all those, they have been really, really hard hit. Now, some of the big ones have had probably a little bit more help from the government to kind of keep going, like our airlines. But all that aside, I mean, virtually all businesses have had to adapt in some kind. That's what we've been talking about today. But, you know, if we go back to kind of the subject of this, one of the points I want to make is, I think one of the big, I call it I'm calling this the year or the year era of now of the home. And I know that sounds self-serving being in a home building product trade, but I'm just amazed by that very chart that you referred to, that housing is in short supply. There's just
Yeah,
literally.
we're gonna throw up a little chart here. So, yeah.
You talk
So-
about a big difference between 2020 and 2008. There's a huge one. We had more houses that nobody knew what to do with. Right? I mean, what was happening? Developers were abandoning subdivisions, and condo units were going uncompleted. But now you contrast that to not enough houses,
Not enough housing.
evidently not enough apartments, so they keep building it.
There seems to be a lot of apartments going
But you
up
know what?
everywhere.
Have you ever spent more time in your homes than you have in the last year?
Or put more money.
Right.
Good, more money in here.
On that note, we were talking before it started, is working on a project where I'm remodeling my bathroom. I need to buy a couple 2x4s.
is.
Yeah, and I need to buy, and not that I go buy 2x4s all the time, but the last time I bought a 2x4 was $2. I went in, it was $7. Okay, so you're in that supply
yeah, well,
chain.
You know,
Well, is the price of wood going to continue going up? I mean, anything we're
Well,
seeing around that?
there's not a short-term end in sight, because lumber, I mean, the cost of raw lumber, whether it to be year two before, or my new finished floor in a box that somebody can buy, the price worldwide is not
Worldwide,
going down.
okay, that's
So part of it's
interesting.
demand driven.
Okay.
Part of it's pandemic caused. So maybe as the pandemic improved, part of it's logistical.
Yep.
Try to get a ship out of China right
Ports.
now. It's very difficult to get.
I understand that
Or
there's
into the
like
States.
boxes.
My lead times are down from 12 weeks to sometimes 6 months. So
Wow.
I order a container today of a new product that's coming out of China. The lead time is between 5 and 6 months.
And that was interesting. I saw somewhere that there's a shortage of containers.
Absolutely.
All
And
the
so, not sure where all the containers went.
Well,
I
they're
just
sitting in
was-
ports
Yeah.
because they can't come in. There's so
It's
many
just that
there's not
tanker ships.
A
enough
lot of them are
people.
just out there floating around.
Yeah.
I mean, just look, if you go to a typical port, it's all you can see now is ships near or.
Mhm.
And just that,
That are not
on a
unloading.
personal question is that because there's not enough longshoremen to get the stuff off the boat, or enough truck
I think
drivers to move it, or
They've had that.
Yeah.
a little bit of all the above? Okay,
Absolutely.
so,
But
Oh,
think-
yeah, no,
But think about that, kind of run with that point a little bit. I mean, what does that tell us about our consumption habits, and what does that tell us as it pertains to being an entrepreneur, right? Let's tie these together. So pre-pandemic, our economy was built around this consumption of different things, right? Movies, we go to baseball and football games, you travel, like cruise, airline, whatever. So your discretionary income, or even not discretionary, whatever it may be, your consumption habits are kind of are built a certain way. So now into the pandemic, we're seeing that those are the exact things that have changed, and of course, that's where the job losses have been annihilated. Okay, so just like kind of in the stock market, the stock market's up at point A, and it goes down to point B. Never is it the same route back to the same road traveled back to point A. I mean, the same thing is going to happen in this recovery. There are going to be different industries that are going to flourish more so. We're not necessarily just going to ultimately get back to where we were, because technology has intervened. logistics, robotics, biotechnology. I mean, so many things have intervened to change the path of recovery. And so as an entrepreneur, if you're in the space, where are the opportunities? To me, we have to calibrate our thinking to the emerging megatrends. There are so many different angles of that are important to consider.
So I think you touched on it quite a bit. Is that where that discretionary? We've talked a little bit about that. Instead of going out to eat, now you're going out and buying 2x4s to remodel your house, put new flooring in because you're spending all this time. Some of the stuff I've heard. I mean, maybe I started my remodel way before the pandemic, so I just taken forever and a day. In fact, I might actually have a little pain on my hands because I was doing some painting today. My wife would like to get the bathroom done. So I talked with a prominent kind of landscape design fellow here in town, and I inquired about something that he had helped me with a while back. So just kind of a passing question, and he said, "Chuck, I cannot even accept looking at a project until July of 2022. I said, do you mean this summer? He said, no, we are book solid. I'm beyond the planning and design phase in the construction phase. We can't even accept looking at a project until this time next summer. That's interesting for me. And that's before we're starting to see maybe some of this infrastructure spending from the government and us getting kind of starting to slowly emerge out of this pandemic from we're having to meet together. So how is that going to change? How is that changing those mega trends that you talked about? How is that going to change where we're going to spend? Because one of the biggest drivers in the U.S. economy is consumer spending, and we've seen that in our flooring, the 2x4 example. But where's that new paradigm going to change to? Is it going to stay the same? Everybody going to continue building their houses and changing their houses, updating their houses, or are we going to go back to going to the Royals game, or going to Arrowhead to watch the Chiefs? Who doesn't like to do that? But when you don't go spend $1,000 at the Arrowhead, well, now it's discretionary to do what? What's that next market? What's that gap that maybe entrepreneurs can fill to take advantage of?
I don't think there's just one, Chuck. I think there's to be a lot.
Okay.
I think people are to go back to travel. I think people are to go right back to some of the same consumption they've had in the past, but it may be moderated. I mean, I think there was a psychology that said, I know in the business world, and Chuck made a similar comment, and I'm sure it shows up in Rick. I used to be on an airplane all the time. And sometimes it was a concept that to meet, you had to be in person and you had to go, and whether or not you really wanted to or not. So this concept now that it's perfectly acceptable and a whole lot more efficient to meet virtually sometimes, especially if it's a case where everybody already knows each other.
You don't have to spend a day on an airplane getting somewhere to have a 2-hour meeting to spend another day to get back.
So, I mean, maybe travel won't be, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to predict. But
Right.
People aren't driving quite as much, so their cars are going to last longer. And the insurance companies already realized that, hey, you don't have as many traffic
fatalities
or just
incidents.
Anyway, it has really, those things have really changed. And some of this will probably stick. I don't know how much.
I think people have recognized the importance of dry powder. Dry powder is having the availability of cash from some source, because when this darn thing hit, people were looking at each other. Many were saying, I don't even know where my next rent check. I don't know how I'm going to make it. I don't know that. And so it's like that great philosopher Jack Reacher says. He says, hope for the best and plan for the worst. And that's what we have to do. And sometimes after that disaster happens. And so I think people are going to be more willing to save. Now they'll still go to Starlight, but instead of getting the front row, they might get a little further back and put some money in the bank. One of the things we're recommending to our customers, and actually anybody who asks, is make sure you have contingent sources of cash if something happens. build some equity in your assets, have a line of credit. If you're a business owner, Chip mentioned trade credit. Well, he is the bank because he has accounts receivable. But in a perfect world, if I was his customer, yes, I would owe him for that, but I would also have a line of credit from the bank. So I would have two sources of credit. So it's real important to take a step back and say, gosh, if something like this happens again, where am I going to get money? Well, I better start saving it right now and put it in an investment portfolio and let compound interest do its magic. So I'm not caught with no money in the bank if something happens like this.
Well, and I think entrepreneurs, you take a risk, but you do a calculated, and that's, I think, what you're talking about is that calculated risk.
You have to be strategic about it.
Exactly, and that contingency plan, just in case it doesn't go the way you think it's gonna go, right?
Absolutely.
And so, Jane Monroe is asking a question wants to know if banks are finding an excess of deposit if people haven't been using their discretion. So our bank accounts, I mean, there are obviously some people that are really hurting and needed the money, but there's other people that are flourishing sometimes in every environment, whether there's always somebody that flourishes and some people that get hurt. Are you seeing a growth in some of your accounts where people are flourishing?
Oh, we have. And hi, Jane. I'm glad that you're watching and you sent that. Ironically, what we are discovering is that business owners are building cash reserves, and they'll have a credit line. The credit line balance, see, a lot of times if a business owner has excess cash, they'll want to pay down that credit line. But there's something magic about having money in your checking account. And so what we're noticing is the trade-off of paying a little bit of interest on your credit line is worth it when you have cash in the bank too.
That's kind of that peace of mind.
It is. It's a security. And Jane, that's a great observation because that's exactly what a lot of people are doing.
So it was kind of about the keeping your money is like, well, how much life insurance do you need? Well, whatever makes you sleep well at night. It's kind of that line in the sand. So, so does that also, the contingency is toilet paper ran short. So does everybody, hopefully, and actually I was talking to somebody, which was kind of interesting. And they said, well, right now their business is hurting and they service a lot of paper goods. He said, well, nobody's shutting down because there's such a demand for it. And he goes, so we're hurting because there's such a demand, but we can't shut down the line to repair the line. So it was kind of interesting from that perspective, and that their clients are too busy to even use their services. So they were having to, and that was kind of falls under somebody that works with Ford and works for some of their issues. And I asked, well, what's being hurt? And this was kind of funny and never would have thought of this. There's a pasta company here in Lee Summit that could not keep up with demand because everybody wanted to buy pasta. Yeah. So toilet paper and pasta, I think so maybe it's a little too late to get the game about
the food chain there.
Yeah.
Where are they? They're all at home.
Yeah. So, we've got about 7 minutes. Is there anything that you guys want to really touch on before we wrap this up? Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can flip the script a little bit here as well. So when you have flexibility, when you have capital, that's one circumstance. For those who may have been displaced, who may not be seeing opportunity at the moment, I want to draw reference to a comment that or something I read the other day while working out. They did a survey. It was like Bloomberg or Reuters or one of those did a survey, asked thousands of people, what are you going to do with your stimulus payment? Does it mean you qualify? What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Over 50% said we're going to put it in the stock market. Now, this is what we do on a daily basis. But I will tell you, right, but I will tell you that that's probably not the best route to take if with that money. To me, I think if you need to pivot because this change forced upon us has created a detrimental circumstance, I think you invest in yourself. I think you invest in yourself in simple ways. Buy a productivity book. Contact Velocity, get involved with the mentorship program. Maybe something as simple as take a practical applications class at a community college. Heck, hire an SEO company. If we Googled right now the #1 handyman or handy person in Lee Summit, I bet that person's doing okay right now. And not because of any other reason probably than circumstance, but also they have really good SEO company helping out. So, I mean, improve your web presence. I mean, we're talking about technology and we're leaning on it more. I mean, showcase your business, invest in your business. And to me,
I like
that's
to invest in yourself, no matter where you're at. Even if you're on this earth, you're an entrepreneur because you're just moving yourself forward.
yeah.
So I think that was a great line right there. A great advice, Chuck, is invest in yourself. Don't necessarily put it in the stock market. Invest in yourself so that you can grow it that exponentially.
Well, learn
yourself.
a trade, or just learn a
trade.
trade, right?
Yeah.
If you've been displaced, I mean, learn a
That's
trade,
right. Oh my
skate to where the puck's going to be, right? As the old saying.
The
Gretzky
Wayne
saying.
Gretzky, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you
mean-
get so good because I don't skate where the puck is. I skate where the puck is going.
Right.
So-
Learn the trade. I mean, the housing thing, for example. I mean, skilled trades are never going to go out of style, and they're in high demand right now.
Yes, most definitely. Rick, any final thoughts or anything to?
Well, probably a couple of things. I'm still kind of stuck on finding a handy person.
Well, it's trying to be PC. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe somebody on this call will call you up. They'll run you down and call you up.
I think two things. One, and both of them are focused on investing in yourself. First, if there's a common thread throughout our support system, it was technology and primarily the internet. Our access that we had throughout the pandemic through our cell phones, our iPads and computers was incredible. We received financial reports and transactions. We stayed in touch with our family. We were able to do research, and if the internet or technology had failed us,
Mm-hmm.
the world would have collapsed, but it did not. And so
Yes.
one of the recommendations we would make is embrace technology.
Yeah.
Don't resist it. Learn some of the benefits that you would have by learning some of the additional features that it will bring you. The other thing is that if you're a business person, take advantage of mentorship opportunities. If there's a mentor in your world, learn what you can. If you don't have a mentor, rely on community support through Chamber of Commerce, the EDC, Velocity, for resources that will help you grow. And then finally, whatever industry where you're working, look into the trade associations and the professional organizations for that support. But invest in yourself to become better at what you do with those who can help you.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent advice. Chip, that's
You know,
hard to
to me-
follow. But
It is very difficult. You know, to me, the takeaway there is invest in yourself, and the whole concept of the networking. That is huge.
Yes.
And everything, whether it be the trade or the local civic organization, church or charitable or whatever your passion of life is. You know, the other one is, as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, being prepared for change and having you and your organization, as you build your organization over time. And even if you plan to stay as an employee, whatever your plan is, if you really are truly prepared in all the manners that have already been talked about today, that alone will help you as much as anything. I mean, just, you know, I think sometimes everybody assumes that whatever was going on today is going to go on tomorrow and keep going on and I'm going, no.
it's
Nothing
going to change.
It's going to
Gonna
change.
change.
I've been at this thing quite a while and it keeps changing. So
Well, we're rapidly running out of time, guys. Hey, I want to thank you guys all. Great advice. I think in the wrap up, and I think we hit it right at the end. Invest in yourself. Get a mentor. Network. So, and you're going to find those opportunities. So again, I want to thank you for the great insight, guys, that you gave us. And whether you find it through Velocity, and we can be found on velocityls.org on the web. You can reach out to us. There's many of us are on LinkedIn, everything. Find us. If you can't find us and you're not in Lee Summit or in Kansas City and watching this, if you're in Peoria, Illinois, reach out to Startup Peoria. There's an organization wherever you are. Go find them and invest in yourself, get a mentor, and network. So we've got about 14 seconds left, but I want to tell you that please come visit us next month. We'll be doing another event. Go to our website and see what the new events are coming. So thank you.